Hello, everyone. My name's Jonathan, our boy Daniel, our boy Irving.
Yo,
This is Eye of the Storm. Hope you guys are doing well. Before we start, guys, was there anything good that you guys watched last week that you wanna let our four subscribers, I believe? We got four subscribers, right? Yeah, our four subscribers. Shout out to you guys, though. You were here from the beginning. Shout out to you guys. But yeah, is there anything good that you guys watched last week?
I got into Blue Eye Samurai on Netflix, and again, it's not a film; it's a TV series. But I'd heard a bit of talk about it online from various people. Put it on and was pleasantly surprised. It's a great animated show. It's got a great story to it, great action in it, really beautifully designed as well. So I would definitely recommend giving that a watch.
I watched the trailer today. Yeah, it looks pretty good.
My thing is not something recent, but I watched The Faculty for the first time in like 20 years. It's like a 90s science fiction horror movie. Like all good horror movies really taps into like a basic fear that anybody can relate to, which in this case, it's the horror of being a high school student, like being in an environment where you can't control where you go, what you do, who you associate with, and you're completely at the mercy of the whims of other people, basically. And that's basically put into the context of like an alien invasion scenario. It's really good, and I enjoyed it a lot.
What I watched, you can guys definitely need to go watch it. I watched The Brother's Son on Netflix. It's amazing. It was about a gangster family from Taiwan, I believe, that was separated due to an assassination attempt. So they had two sons, mother, a father, and two sons. The mother took one of the sons, and obviously the father took the other one. The mother went to California, LA, with one of the sons, and obviously the dad and the brother stayed in Taiwan. So two different upbringings. One ended up growing up to be a gangster because obviously he's under the roof of Big Kingpin, and the other one turned out to be a normal kid, funny. So then there was another assassination attempt on the father. So then he was set. So the brother basically had to go all the way to LA to pretty much make sure that the brother and the mother was safe, and at the same time, he had to find out who who tried to assassinate their father, and they go through a bunch of trials and tribulations, and yeah, it's very funny, action packed, and a lot of plot twists.
I'm about halfway through that now. It's excellent. Probably the best recent show I've seen.
Oh, you watched it?
I'm on episode 5 out of 8. But yeah, so far it's excellent.
So I'll add it to my list after I'm done with Blue Eye Samurai. I think definitely, if you're saying best series of the year so far, and we're only in January, then yeah, I'll go give that a watch.
Of the last 12 months, I'm not doing the same bit as from last episode. This one is actually the best one in a long time.
Okay.
Honestly, like, and I keep mentioning, I'm not really a big fan of comedy. So obviously, comedy is big in this one. It's like action comedy. Comedy is big in this one, so I was kind of reluctant to go watch it. But then when I watched the first episode, it hooked me straight away. So yeah, this one is definitely a good watch. Good watch. Netflix there, and they've got Arcane season 2 coming out as well. Like Netflix are.
Okay, hey,
Yeah,
we might have to adapt one of our sort of episodes later in the year to review Arcane, because that show, if you've not seen Arcane, you need to watch Arcane. One of the greatest series, animated series, live series, one of the greatest series I've ever watched for first season.
Netflix are on a roll.
Yeah,
Dude,
and
they're
Blue Eye
playing
Samurai as well. Blue Eye Samurai is part of Netflix as well, so they are cooking right now.
Yeah, they're cooking, definitely.
Yeah.
So why are we here today? What movie are we going to talk about today?
We are reviewing Night Swim. Jonathan, give us your thoughts.
Let me just say, I acknowledge that this was the film director's first feature film. I believe his name is Byce, forgot his second name. So I definitely commend him for that, and I respect him for that. And I actually respect the fact that he ended up getting his short film adapted. That is any filmmaker's dream, so congrats. But this is why I tend not to watch a lot of horror films that are not R-rated. It just wasn't for me, man. This film felt like each scene felt like it was not finished. Like Daniel likes to say, it felt underbaked, honestly. I personally feel like it was lacking depth in most of the scenes, especially the scene at the end, which I'm not going to go into too much because we haven't entered into spoiler territory. But, there was an interaction between, let me just briefly say what it was about. There was an interaction between the mother, the son, and the daughter due to a situation that happened, and their reaction, and that reaction to that situation wasn't a reaction you'd expect after that traumatic experience. Personally, for me, the film kind of just felt unfinished, man. I wouldn't say I was looking forward to the film, but I wasn't going in there with a negative outlook. It was being distributed by Blumhouse. I said, okay, it's either going to be a all right film or it's going to be a good film, because Blumhouse produced some real good horrors, you know what I'm saying? But yeah, this one unfortunately was a miss for me.
So as a person that doesn't enjoy horror movies, that doesn't like to be scared in films, that, really stays away from that genre for the most part, this was just an okay movie. I mean, it wasn't, offensively bad in any type of way, but it wasn't good or great in any type of way either. It wasn't really that scary, in my opinion. There wasn't actually there was one moment that did get me. We're not in the spoiler section yet, so I won't say it. Yeah. But there is one scene which, creeped me out a little bit, but it wasn't sort of scary. It was just creepy and weird in a sense. But I don't know. It felt very generic. It felt very early 2000s. It felt very simple in its ideas, and I think you hit the nail on the head when you said it was underbaked. I think there was some decent ideas in there, but it just wasn't followed through. So for me, it was just an okay film.
Yeah, I just felt like the execution of each scene, or most scenes, it didn't feel like it was finished.
No, it was a simple premise as well. It's a sort of kind of simple idea in the film, but I feel like that's this movie and many others, Aquaman and stuff like that, is sort of kind of demonstrates my issue with film at the moment, is that there isn't enough strong writing. And bear in mind, not every movie needs to be a 10 out of 10. Not every movie needs to be a masterpiece. You can get your 7 out of 10, your 8 out of 10, 6 out of 10s, which are just kind of okay. You can go to the movies and sort of enjoy the film. But it just seems to be a theme amongst a lot of movies at the moment where the writing is just weak. It's just I don't know who the writers were for this, but it just feels that, there isn't enough work being put into writing of film at the moment.
But to be fair, horror movies aren't really known for exactly for the writing. I wouldn't say that's but it's not highlight.
Yeah, and when I say the writing, it's more the ideas. So again, we'll get into it in the sort of the spoiler discussion in terms of the threat and sort of the threat behind it. Of course, horror is not meant to be, again, a masterpiece, but it's meant to scare, and it's meant to kind of induce fear, and part of that is kind of some of the lore and some of the sort of some of the ideas behind it and some of the sort of kind of terror behind it. I just don't feel it was done really well.
I mean, any genre can be good, but horror is kind of like comedies, and that the point is to get an emotional response out of the audience. And in the case of horror, that's fear or being disturbed or something like that. There wasn't a lot of that in the movie, right?
No, how scary is water?
Yeah, I mean, you can there's a fear of water, there's a fear of drowning. There's things you can do, right?
Mm-hmm. But it wasn't done well. I think again, you touched on it where it's not R-rated, so that kind of took away some of the fear factor that they could have sort of put into the movie as well.
Trying to make it as universal as possible, and I get it. There are, I don't know if there's a lot, but there are R-rated. There are horror films that aren't R-rated that have been successful. I believe Insidious is one.
Was Megan R-rated?
Yeah, exactly. So, but I wouldn't even really consider, even though they're calling it a horror, I wouldn't really consider Megan a horror. If you watch the film, I'd say it's more of a thriller than anything, but it is classified as a horror. But yeah, you're right, exactly. So just generally the horror films that aren't really R-rated, they can't really go to the extreme lengths that it can go, which can have its consequences. But like I said, they try to go global with this, try to make as much money as possible, as as accessible as possible to a more wider audience. And sometimes that can bite you in the butt. But like I said, it was his first time, because I checked on Google, and all I saw on this catalog was this film. So I believe this was his first feature. Maybe he's created many short films, but yeah, this was definitely his first feature. So I definitely do commend him for that. It's just this one would have to be a miss for me.
So this movie is being panned everywhere in reviews in general. I think on Rotten Tomatoes on similar sites is in the 40s, which is terrible, even for horror. I think the reason for this is expectations. So when you watch the trailer and when you read the reviews, you get the impression that this is a movie about a haunted pool, kind of like a moist Insidious. It isn't actually that. Like when you actually watch the movie, it's actually a story. It's almost Lovecraftian story about this evil that lurks under the surface and that corrupts people and that messes with people and changes them. And that is what the actual story is about. The problem is that those two ideas don't really go together, and they exist in the same movie and they cannibalize each other because each one doesn't have enough time to really develop and really unfold its potential. And so people go in expecting, like a haunted house movie, but with a pool, which already is a very limited premise. But that's what people expect. And then we get very little of that, but a lot of, the father and his illness, and he's being cured, but it's coming at a price. And we see other cases where a similar thing has unfolded. And the horror it's actually a pretty psychological horror movie, which nobody expected and which nobody who bought a ticket wanted. And I think that is why it's being panned so hard. And I actually enjoyed the second story that was in this. And if that was the entire movie, and if that idea was better developed, I think it could have been a good one. My bottom line for this movie is basically I want somebody to remake this someday so that the second story can be told properly.
Well, they are saying that a sequel might be developed, so
yeah,
who knows?
The question is whether they agree with me that that's what the movie's about, because I'm not sure they are.
What was the audience reaction? What were they saying the problem was? Was they saying how
there's no ghost, there's no
okay,
right?
Mm-hmm.
That's the general review, and I actually think there's a lot to like about this movie. I like the characters. I like that they were a functioning family that cared about each other, which is actually important for the story, because when the time comes to sacrifice one of them for a better life, it matters that they like each other and that they have been helping each other the entire time.
So we might as well get into the likes, right? So I do believe that the interaction between the family was good. It was great, actually. That's definitely a highlight. Well, that's not a highlight moment, but that's definitely a like for me, especially between the brother and the sister. That's definitely a like of mine.
No, definitely the dynamic between the family was, one of the positives of the movie, and that's what I enjoyed the most in the film. In terms of other positives, that's me. No, and again, I don't want to be I don't want to seem negative once we touch on the things that could have been improved on the movie, because it wasn't a bad movie. It was somewhat enjoyable, and like Daniel said, it could have probably been if it's redone, it could be done a little bit better. But I can't really think of too many things that I was watching the movie and thought, okay, they've done this extremely well, or this is very good.
I think I'm more positive about this than the both of you are put together. I think it actually matters that the family is likable and gets along, because in most horror movies, everybody is a horrible person and you're just waiting for them to be killed. Like if you're watching a Friday the 13th movie or something like that, that's the appeal, right? You build up these unlikable characters so that you can cheer when they die. That's the standard template for a slasher movie.
But that is a recipe to eroding emotion amongst the audience, which kind of engages them more. So you could argue that's why they do that.
They do it so it's fun to watch them die, right?
But
I really think that's what the appeal of the subgenre is, and this is actually more like, it presents itself as not a slasher movie but a haunted house movie. And even there, you usually have very bland characters who are just introduced in order to be killed or walk around, in a dark hallway until they die.
But in order for you to find it fun, you kind of need to be invested in it, though.
I'm not talking down to anybody who likes slasher movies. I like them too. My big problem with that kind of horror movie is that there's a half hour in the beginning where you have to show mundane things with unlikable characters so that you have a benchmark for when the killing starts. Right? I'm always bored out of my mind in that half hour, because nothing happens and nothing happens on purpose. But here we actually do get a lot. We get the dynamic of the family. We get the thing about the chronic illness. We get the thing about the pool is there from the beginning. We see the first kill, I think, in the first minutes. So there's stuff happening, and you have this build up where they get closer and closer to the pool, and you know what's in the pool, and they don't, and that's a source of suspense. So I wasn't bored. I thought that for the most part the pacing was pretty good. I wasn't bored when I watched it. Characters were generally likable in general. Everybody in the movie. I really liked the real estate agent. I think there were a lot, for a character like that, there were a fair amount of layers. As you get to see her more, she becomes a real person more and more. And that really comes to a point when she really kind of confesses that she knows about the murder of the child 30 years ago and didn't tell that person in order to close the deal and so on. All the characters in there were generally at least neutral or likable, which is unusual for this kind of movie, and I appreciated that.
Who would you say your favorite character was?
For me,
Yeah, she's the only one who makes decisions, and well, not the only one, but for the most, she makes most of the decisions, and she drives the plot forward, right, by researching the house and by tracking down the other family and stuff like that. So I think she's the most interesting person, especially since she makes the big decision at the end, right, because she made the decision whether or not to go along with the sacrifice. So she's the protagonist, and I think that makes her the most interesting person.
I think, like Dan said, the mother was, a good character. I actually did quite enjoy the sibling dynamic as well, the brother and the sister. I think their relationship, their interactions were, quite good in the movie as well. I liked that. Again, he had a little bit of agency on his side in terms of when they're having the pool party, and he was kind of recording through his camera as well. But apart from that, there wasn't a massive standout. To be fair, and there's not really many to pick from on this. And actually, one of my points that I was going to say, because I think you touched on this earlier, and I've actually just been waiting to say it. So you were talking about how it's two different movies where you've got the terror in the pool that's kind of like terrorizing them, and then you have this slow reveal that actually it's like it's a healing pool, but it requires that sacrifice to for the person to gain all the benefits from it. And I feel like, again, when I was talking about the writing at the start of the movie in terms of it not being great, is that the reveal. And that's actually one of the positives I did have about the movie in terms of it had me intrigued to know what the story was behind the pool. But I just feel like the writing wasn't strong enough in terms of unraveling the mystery of the pool. And I feel like we just get that ultimate exposition from the little girl's mother, I believe it was, from the little girl's mother that were the previous tenants of the house where she, who died. And she just basically lays out the whole movie in that one scene. And it was just a bit underwhelming, in my opinion.
There's also the pool technician who talks about the natural springs and how they're all over the region, and how this is actually not a regular pool, but this is actually underground spring water and stuff like that. So that establishes a lot of the context that after a while you realize, oh, that's what's going on.
Personally, for me, I'm sorry to bring it back a bit. My favorite character is actually the dad, because I could feel his pain, me trying to make it as a footballer back in the day, which obviously didn't go successful. And when you got that injury during your prime years, it can hurt, man. So obviously I felt his pain. I remember one of my favorite scenes was when the wife was watching him from the window, him in the swimming pool, just literally like he was staying into your swimming practice. Because once he started to realize, oh, okay, this pool is giving me back my dream. Do you know what I'm saying? I was like, I understood. I understood. You know what I'm saying, I understood what he was going through. I understood his attachment to that pool, and I said to myself, okay, now he's attached to the pool, and the pool's going to take advantage. So it kind of like, the pieces are falling together. So I enjoyed that I was following along with the film.
But then it's kind of a shame that there isn't a scene where he realizes what's going on, is tempted to sacrifice his son. Right? He goes from being completely clueless straight to being possessed. And unless I missed it, there isn't a point in between where he makes a decision or makes a choice in either way, right? I think that goes towards it being underwritten in the sense that there are key pieces, I think, here that are missing, like the father being tempted, and what if the mother and the father both had the same decision to make, which is, now that I realize what's going on, what do I do? And he decides to go for the sacrifice so that he can get his career back and he can provide a better life for his family, and the mother decides to not go along with it, even if that means losing her husband to the chronic illness. Mm-hmm. Like that would have been nice if that had been in the movie.
What would you say your highlight moments were?
So I think the creepiest moment was when the old woman kind of reveals her true nature, and the camera she just completely loses her humanity, and the camera just keeps pointing at her face, and it just won't cut away, and that was genuinely unsettling. I think I thought that was a great performance.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I agreed with Daniel a lot, but when I said that there was like one moment which completely creeped me out, it was that moment. I remember, I don't know why, but I had chills running through my entire body during that scene. It was a very chilling scene, and that was one of my highlights of the movie.
I think it might be the only time I've seen a real person go into the uncanny valley without any special effects. You know the uncanny valley?
No.
So the uncanny valley is basically if something like a doll or a CGI effect is almost human but not exactly, then subconsciously you realize that something is wrong. That you have this instinctual aversion to it because your brain tries to figure out what is going on because your brain doesn't, like your subconscious brain doesn't understand CGI, right? So it thinks, oh, this is a corpse, or it's like something that's not natural, like that you shouldn't be around. So it triggers this unease. So that's the uncanny valley. And normally you get that with bad CGI or with something that is, or like a robot that is almost lifelike, something like that. And this actress who played this older woman managed to get into that uncanny valley, I think, without any special effects. And I thought, and that's an achievement by itself.
Okay. Didn't you guys like the coin drop scene? When the and the build up to that, and also there was like I felt there was like a similarity, especially when he was looking when his name was being called, and then in that scene, and then I don't know what he was looking through. What was he looking through? Where his name? Yeah, exactly. That scene there. That scene. Yeah, that was good. I like the build up to that and the tension. And look at that kind. I think that's probably I think that moment and Rebecca's mum moment, where the one that you mentioned, Daniel. I think those were the two moments that it was they were good at kind of like building up that fear and that unsettling feeling.
Yeah, that was actually part of probably the worst part of the movie for me.
Which one?
Probably the pool hauntings in general. I thought were the weakest part.
Oh, so you didn't enjoy
they make no
the
sense.
point?
Once you know what's actually going on, there's no reason why they need to be ghosts.
What I didn't understand and what I didn't like, and again, it might be just like a horror movie trope, was why, because like my interpretation of it was like the ghosts and like sort of the creatures inside the water that was trying to pull them in were previous people that were sacrificed to the pool.
That's what I was gonna say, but
then you had the one girl, Rebecca, who was also sacrificed, but was the only good one. So like it just didn't make sense why everyone was who had been sacrificed, and if you've been sacrificed, it's not through your own choice to be sacrificed, apart from the dad at the end. Why everyone was bad and trying to get more people sacrificed, as opposed to the girl who had to be the good one. It just didn't make sense.
But
and you can go away with that, right? You can say, okay, all the ghosts, basically the pool is haunted because people are dying there, but that's not the evil. And the ghosts are trying to warn people. That you could have gone that way, or you can say the evil is using the likenesses of the people it has killed in the past to terrorize more people. That could also have worked, but they kind of did both at the same time, and therefore it didn't work.
She was a child, and the other ghosts were adults, and generally children are associated with innocence. I'm sure they were trying to go through that route.
Maybe it seemed to me more like they needed somebody to give the mother a clue. Because when she says her name, the mother starts researching the name, and that's how she finds the family who formerly lived there. It seemed to me that's why that's happening. It doesn't hang together. Like the individual sequences are kind of very by the numbers, like standard scary movie fare. But once you realize what's actually going on, it doesn't make sense. It's not clear why the ghosts are there, or why they do what they do, or why the evil would do this as opposed to something else. Also, if the evil wants people to make the sacrifice, why scare people away? Why not make them a tempting offer, for example? Like you can do all sorts of different things, and there's more than one answer that works. But it seems to me like they didn't pick one at all.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but did it do that for the mother at the start, or not? Did it show her like a sort of attempting scene? So
the way the evil operates, it finds somebody whose loss will be least missed, and it finds the person who will benefit most from the sacrifice, and then it lures the person who makes a good sacrifice essentially into the pool and kills them, and then the life essence is transferred to whoever benefits from it. That's my understanding. Cool. But then the whole thing about the flickering lights and about the ghost calling to people or trying to scare people, like all of that seems like unnecessary and doesn't follow from what the evil is doing.
The pool already found the father, so didn't the pool trying to scare the other people or the other family members was after? He already latched onto the father.
What do you mean? Which other people?
As in the other family members, because the pool was definitely scaring the mum, the sister, and the brother. Well, with the father.
So my understanding was that it observes the family for a while, and it realizes that the father can benefit from the life essence, right? So that it can cure his MS. and the son would be missed least because he's kind of mediocre at everything, right? Like he has the least value to the family in that sense. So in a weird way, it's actually benevolent, and that it tries to improve. It's like a utilitarian evil, where it tries to maximize the success or the well-being of the family just without consulting them or without asking what they want. It's actually trying to benefit the family. Is the weird thing about this.
Another question I had was, if you had to sacrifice something that you loved into the pool to sort of kind of benefit from it, what happened to the cat? Like, it seemed like the pool took the cat, and then
so how does that fit in?
Like, why do they do that? And like, why did that not then cure the dad?
Because it's creepy. That's why it happened.
Yeah, basically. And to tell the boy was the end of the movie to sort of kind of go to the pool one more time, even though he knows the pool is evil and he shouldn't go near the pool.
But in the horror movies, generally there are some unnecessary kills. Those kills are just there to show that there is an evil presence and how cruel that evil presence can be. Because a cat, why would you kill a cat? Everyone loves cats. Not everyone. I ain't really a big fan of cats. Shout out to the people that love cats, though. But
I don't think a genre should be an excuse for bad writing. There are like conceits with the horror genre, but within that framework, it should still be good. It should still make sense.
But that might just be a formula. Who's to say that that's?
Yeah, but tropes are like tools. They aren't like crutches. These are all familiar pieces, and the writer should pick the ones that benefit the story, not just do them because the audience will recognize them.
Yeah, but the killing of the cat does show that there's a presence. So isn't that part of the puzzle?
It doesn't flow from the motive or the way the evil behaves.
True.
The whole having to sacrifice something to the pool as well.
Because it doesn't just seem to kill people. It seems to study people and then kill whoever is most dispensable.
Mm-hmm. That's very true.
That actually goes towards the movie's favor. That's actually a really interesting idea. But it's just, like we've said before, it's really underdeveloped. And there's big plot holes and world building holes of things that should be there, given that that's how the evil hot spring operates, that aren't there.
My issue with the film, it wasn't a bad movie. My issue just was that I felt like it just wasn't finished. That's all. I didn't care that it didn't have a lot of there wasn't a lot of jump scares or there wasn't a lot of scary scenes. I didn't care about that. It just felt each scene just felt like it wasn't executed the way that it should have been. The only reason why the film wasn't for me. It wasn't a bad film though. Let me just make that clear. It wasn't a bad film. It just wasn't finished.
It also spun its wheels. Like it did the almost killing somebody scene 3 or 4 times, and it unfolded at the exact same time each time with the ominous. Somebody's watching you and the lights flicker, and that whole sequence happened multiple times, and it never really added up to anything. Like there wasn't even like a progression of, okay, the evil has been dormant for 20 years because nobody's used the pool, and now it's waking up, and each time somebody swims in it, it gets a little bit more active until it finally reaches. Like there was nothing like that. It was just pure kind of emulating the creepy bits of the short movie that this was based on. But we have to do it 3 or 4 times because we can't think of the evil to do anything else.
Do you know what really annoyed me about this film as well? There was one too many really stupid scenes, like the scene at the pool party where the dad is being possessed by the evil and he's holding onto the child that's on his shoulder and he's going deeper and deeper into the pool. And you can see the kid is flapping his arms, clearly drowning. And there's how many people around the pool and no one's witnessing it. No one sees it apart from the kid with his camera recorder. And it's just like stuff like that just kind of takes me out of the movie because it's just very obviously stupid. To keep that scene in the movie.
It's like you guys didn't like the things that I liked about the film. Bro, you know what? I really liked that scene though, because it was very intensifying for me and relatable because I was actually in a pool where I nearly drowned around a bunch of people and no one could see, only my mom, even the freaking lifeguard. He was the highest point of he was all the way in his freaking pool chair. He couldn't even see me. And I was actually drowning for like about 30 seconds. No one could see me. I was around a bunch of people until my mom saw me. So in that situation, I understand it. And I think for me, that was, it was a good scene. It can happen because when you're in a swimming pool and you're playing, you're not really, you're not really paying attention to what's behind you or the people that's around you that you're not interacting with. You're just concentrated on who you're interacting with. And generally speaking, especially when you're a guy, you're always, you're generally like your interaction is play fight in the pool. and you can never lose concentration. That's exactly what was going on there. So I was like, yo, this is pretty, like, I felt tense. I was like, oh crap, this guy's gonna kill this guy. And thankfully the son spotted him. But I understand your point of view. I get it. But the reason why because I can relate to it, because I think you have
you've got different experience to it than I do. For me, it was there's people directly in front, there's people directly at the back. They kind of got vision of it. They can see it happening from what was shown in the movie, and no one did anything about it, which kind of annoyed me. The other scene, which didn't really make sense, was when they saw that the father was possessed by it, and they were trying to leave the house, but the evil was trying to keep them in the house. But then you've established that the evil, the water, is connected to a lake that's connected to most of the town, basically. So why would the evil have to keep him at this specific pool in this specific house? Why was he not able to leave and the pool still have influence over the father at that point? I don't know. It just didn't make sense to me. I understand why they did it in wanting to keep it in the pool that's been established in the movie. I understand why it's happened for the movie, but in terms of like the lore and the context behind it, for me, it didn't make sense.
And there's like things missing, like them not going near the pool no matter what, right? Or locking the father into a room so he can't get to the pool, or them buying gallons and gallons of bottled water so that they don't have to drink the tap water which comes from the spring. Like a whole bunch of different pieces are missing here, right?
At what point did the pool, decide to have supernatural powers where it can control? Well, obviously, the tap water in the kitchen, that one, okay, fine, but when it was like controlling the pool cover to cover the sun at the end and stuff like that, I don't know. It was starting to take me out of the movie towards the end, some of the stuff that was happening. And some people can excuse it. For me, it was just not interesting.
I can buy the whole possessing somebody, especially if they've been exposed to the water a lot.
I can buy that. I just didn't buy that this lake was connected to multiple areas around the town. And if it's connected to the tap water as well, it can reach the father in many different places, but it had to keep him at this specific pool. Again, I understand for the movie, it's based on this pool, so it keeps him there. But,
And they make a big deal out of that, right? When the mother goes to see the other family and there's this sinister glass of water, right? Like they make a big deal out of the fact that it's the water that's the problem, and the water is everywhere because, it's in the pool, it's in the taps, it's in the drinking water, everything, right? So you can't escape it.
Another thing that kind of bugged me, again, I know the movie's based on this swimming pool, but if you've established that multiple pools have access to this in the water, if like they've got the natural feeling of it, why is everyone died in this one pool? Like, why is it not affected other pools? Like, if the mystery was it's happening in multiple places in the town and stuff like that, then I could buy it, and it would make for a better movie and better lore around this mysterious lake. But everything happening in this one particular house, it's another thing that could have been done better.
There's a big logic error here where like the pool technician guy explicitly says that it feeds basically everything in the region, right? Like you said, right?
Yeah.
So is this not happening in every house, or every house at least it has a pool in the town? And if this has been going on for centuries, hasn't this been happening every generation? And shouldn't this be one of the richest places in the country? Because each family has been making these sacrifices every generation for 200 years or whatever.
Yeah.
And if not, then why is this the only pool that's affected? But then they say it isn't. This water connects to this cave system that feeds into everything. So if it's supposed to be just the one pool, why establish that it's this big system? That's kind of the part that's really underdeveloped.
Yeah.
Like, what if this had been a spa town? People from all over the country go there to bathe in the hot springs, and they all make these sacrifices. And the entire town is in on it, and this can't be exposed because that is how they thrive. That's how they become safe and healthy and prosperous and all of these things.
But at the same time, we need to take into consideration the budget.
So you don't have to show any of this. You can just say,
allude to it.
You can have that in dialogue. But I'm just saying that if you have something that so obviously follows from what's being established as part of the premise, and then it's completely missing without being acknowledged, then that starts approaching a plot hole, in my opinion, where you say, why is this not a completely different place? And at this point, we're very far away from the haunted pool scenario and what happened in the short film. But they didn't have to do this. Like my theory is that they basically started off with this short film that was really successful. And they had to expand it, and as they try to expand it, they realized that there wasn't a whole lot to this idea. So they started adding other stuff like the ancient evil underground that corrupts people. But they couldn't just make that movie because they had already signed up to do the Ghost in the Pool movie. And so they kind of had to do both, but neither really adds up to a complete movie. So here's the question. We've all seen the short film, right?
Yeah.
So basically the short film is essentially that scene where the daughter is in the pool at night and she looks up through the water and sees somebody standing by the pool. She comes up to the surface, there's nobody there. She does that a couple of times. And then it's actually herself who is the ghost, right? So the ghost is not somebody else, it's actually her, but as made up as a corpse. And that's where it ends. So that's the starting idea. And that aspect of it, basically either she's being haunted by her future self or the pool is using her image to scare her. That part is completely missing from the movie.
You get once with when the mother's in the pool at the start of the movie and she sees her husband. She doesn't see herself, she sees her husband. So
yeah, that's right.
It's essentially there, but again, it's not fully fleshed out. It's not fully followed through.
Which still doesn't work. Yeah.
Would that have been even better to explore?
I don't know. That's kind of my question. Would that have been better than what we got? Would it have been possible to expand this idea into a 2-hour movie?
How they could have done it could have linked to seeing oneself slowly deteriorating into that corpse version. That would have been an interesting take.
Yeah. The obvious thing to do is kind of to play around with fear surrounding water, right? Like lots of people have been close to maybe drowning in a pool or had a scare where it looked for a second like they might drown or something. I think the secret to good horror is not so much to make the audience believe that it might be real, but to kind of tap into a universal fear that everybody can relate to, and that just personified by what's going on in the movie. Fear surrounding drowning, fear surrounding water.
Pretty much Final Destination.
It's been a while. Is this their water-related death?
Final Destination is literally just they exaggerate deaths which are very likely to happen. So, for example,
Exorcist is the same way. It's about the fear of something's wrong with your child and you're not sure if you can help. Many people can relate to that. Terminator is about you will never be safe again. It's kind of almost an allegory for being victim of a burglary where somebody breaks into your house and now there's nowhere you can feel safe again, at least for a while. These movies work because they remind people of a fear they've once had, and that's scary by itself. It's not about convincing somebody that possessions happen or that killer robots from the future are real or anything like that. It's reminding somebody of a fear they've once had. And I think this movie gets pretty close in a few scenes with fear of drowning or fear of somebody close. I'm sure there's many parents out there who have been worried about their children on a holiday or something where the children went too close to a pool and you were always worried about, maybe they slip and I don't know, crack their head or something like that. That's a fear that many people can relate to. And there's this one scene as well where the daughter had this close call with a ghost, I think, and then the next day the pool party happens and she's afraid to go into the pool, even though it's in the middle of the day, there's dozens of people around, but she's just too afraid of the water. And I thought that was really effective. I think you could have made a movie based on that idea. The question is, can you come up with a good idea for why the pool is haunted and why you can't just walk away from the pool? It seems to me like they gave up on that and just went with this other idea.
Okay. So what would you rate the film?
I don't know. I mean, I really like the evil hot spring idea. As soon as once that started showing up in the movie, I started to become interested. I was really hoping for it to go somewhere, and it never really quite got there. And then the haunted pool part of it is just so underwhelming. Not only it feels obligatory, the monster designs are really basic, have no creativity in them. There's not a lot of them. That part is really underwhelming and feels like it has to be there, so we have to put it there, but we don't really have any ideas for it. The first half kind of adds up to maybe 2 out of 5 movie, and the other one adds up to maybe a 3 out of 5 movie, which could have been more if it had been more fully developed.
Okay, so 2 out of 5 and 3 out of 5. So let's say 2.5. What about you, Harvey? What's your last thoughts and ratings?
To me, I mean, the movie's inoffensive. It's not that bad. It doesn't overstay its welcome as well. This is a movie where I actually enjoy its fun time being a lot shorter than what some typical movies are as well. For a horror movie and for a person that doesn't enjoy a horror movie, it didn't really like scare me. And the whole point of it is to sort of invoke that emotion out of you. And it didn't really, for the most part, bring that out on me as well. Again, like Daniel said, some good ideas, a lot of it half-baked. A few plot holes that I sort of came away from, kind of really questioning why they made certain choices in the movie, which kind of dragged it down for me as well. So I would probably give it 5 out of 10. It's inoffensive. It's okay. I wouldn't probably watch it again, and I'd probably forget it in a couple of weeks.
I believe that this is a film that has some good scenes and interesting ideas. I just feel like the ideas weren't executed the way it should have been. I think it was rushed. They should have took their time on it. Maybe the director needed some guidance. Who knows? Because it's his first feature film. Okay film. That could have been a good film if they took their time with it. So I'd give this film a 5 out of 10. I think that's justified. It was an okay experience.
Yeah. Actually, I would disagree with one of the things you said, and I think it's actually really competently directed. There's a bunch of things that are set up and then paid off. There's a bunch of recurring ideas that kind of parallel each other. The whole thing about the family and how they stick together and how they constantly try to help each other, for instance, and how the family motto is kind of just keep going. That all kind of stuck together, in my opinion, and that really had something to do with the second story that was in there. Not so much with the haunted pool story, but there's kind of like fragments of a well-constructed story in there. It's just crowded out by the obligatory part. And that is something that a lot of movies these days, I think, forget to do or kind of undervalue. But I was actually constantly slightly impressed as I was watching the movie, because, oh yeah, that's a callback to a thing that happened before, and this is a recurring idea that is maybe recontextualized now, and where we constantly have this idea of sacrifice for the families, sometimes in a good way, like when the mother essentially gives up her career in order to care for the husband because of his illness. But then the idea of sacrifice for family turns around when it's about the son being sacrificed to benefit the family as a whole. So it's the same idea, but done in kind of inverted. There's things there. And I don't think it's poorly directed or anything like that. Like, the pacing is good. Like, it's shot decently well. It's not the kind of train wreck that I think a lot of people are saying. Like, people are talking about how this deserves Razzie nominations, and it's not that. It's not that kind of bad movie. It just suffers from being two movies at the same time.
I didn't say it was poorly direct, and my point derives mainly from the last act. I think the way that the last act was executed was kind of like the finishing blow for me. Especially, I mentioned this point as well, especially with the last scene, there's family reaction to the father sacrificing himself and their reaction to what to do with the house. It was like, your father has just sacrificed yours. He's literally just sacrificed himself for you guys. And there's not much of a profound sadness that you'd expect from a family witnessing their father dying. Especially, I remember, because we spoke about this in the office, where I said how the scene where they were talking about what to do with the house, it felt like they were just saying their lines rather than actually showing us that they actually went through a traumatic experience. Even though it may have been like a week later or a couple weeks later, in films, you still kind of need to show that traumatic experience has affected you, because your father just died. You know what I'm saying? And I didn't really see that.
I see where you're coming from, but I also think it's clear that at least a week has passed between those two scenes. I can imagine them being wrecked the next day, but then eventually they pull themselves together and think, okay, now what do we do? We could sell the house, make it somebody else's problem, start over, but we're not going to. We're going to handle this as responsibly as we can. And I can see somebody having that loss and then being mostly put together a week later, or however long it was, but it wasn't the next day, it wasn't 2 days later. There was clearly some amount of time that had passed.
Daniel, do you feel like this movie would have benefited from an extra 20 or 30 minutes? Because I know you don't like long movies, but for the ideas that were in here, could have been fleshed out over a little bit longer time.
The reason I don't like long movies is that it often means the movie is bloated, there are too many characters, there are too many subplots, and this one didn't have that at all. It was one, kind of two stories, but each one had like there's like two main strands that keep going, and they kind of crowd each other out, but there aren't many subplots. There's not much stuff in there that doesn't need to be there. I wouldn't have minded it being 20 minutes longer if it meant we got some of that extra detail, My problem mainly was that it's trying to be two movies at the same time, and they can't coexist in this. Like, they're even different genres. They're different kinds of horror movie. I called it Lovecraftian earlier, and I think that's actually pretty close. And I think it's fairly psychological as well, because the horror is in the minds of the people for the most part, where they have a choice, and they have a choice on how to respond to that situation. But there isn't a monster chasing them exactly, except for the father, which is probably a bad idea in the first place. It probably shouldn't have been that. I might even compare it to Eternals at this point, where you have a group of people who are a unit, who get along well, and then they are given information, and then they respond differently to the information, and that's where they become opponents. That's the structure of Eternals, right? And that's what this should have been. There should have been no possession. There should have been nothing like that. It's just the family finds out what's going on, and each one of them reacts differently to this information. That's where the opposition and the conflict comes from. That's probably what it should have been. So there should never have been a haunted pool in the first place. Should have been all about this evil sitting there that you can benefit from if you make that step. And each character, depending on who they are and what position they're in and what they want, will make a different choice on how to react to that. If the movie had been that, it would have been amazing, but it wasn't.
Actually, I agree. And sorry, guys, the only reason why I was smiling there when Daniel mentioned Eternals, because that's another film that he didn't think was as terrible as everyone made it out to be.
I have three people who likes that movie, and exactly for that reason, because it doesn't really have a villain. It's a group of people who are functioning adults who, for the most part, get along well, and then they are put into a situation where they cannot be on the same page anymore, and then they start fighting each other. I think Eternals is widely disliked because it departs from the Marvel formula so much, and I think this movie is disliked because it departs from what was promised so much, which was a haunted house movie. And if that promise hadn't been made, if this had been sold like Color Out of Space or something like that, then it would have been much better received. It would have got, like, I was in a theater full of 16-year-olds who wanted a cheap thrill and who wanted to watch a ghost kill people, and they were bored out of their minds. And I was sitting there saying, yes, now it's getting interesting. Now we're talking about the evil water and people making sacrifice for family and the obligation, the role of obligation and family, and to what extent you should make a sacrifice for yourself to benefit your family, knowing you will never benefit, which is what people do in the real world all the time, just in different ways. Like that's where I kind of perked up and said, yeah, this is now it's a movie, and all the teenagers around me started going on their phones, and that was and I totally understand why people don't like this movie, because they were sold something that it's not, and there's very little overlap between the movie that was promised and the movie that was delivered. So I'm not really surprised by the negative reviews. It just seems like once you've seen the movie, you kind of have to kind of go along with what it actually is, as opposed to what it was sold as.
Do you think that? Oh, I don't think you guys seen the film, but maybe they tried the barbarian approach, because that film definitely wasn't what was advertised. Go and watch that film. That's another film that you guys should go and watch, and then you'll see what I'm talking about.
I haven't seen it yet.
Yeah, but it was definitely a completely different film to what people thought it was going to be. Definitely, it was like two movies in one, which was executed perfectly. And it should have been in theaters, because I think it went straight to Hulu. It was in some theaters, but it wasn't a lot, mainly streaming, but still.
Just to sort of kind of touch on the two movies part, it just should have been blended. Like, it makes sense, for me, it makes sense why they started off with the haunted pool at first, kind of scaring people. And then they just could have better revealed what was truly happening. And like you said, they could have gone into multiple different directions with what the actual real thing would have been. I actually especially like the idea of it being I think a bit like, is it Shaun of the Dead? Where there's this particular thing happening in the community, people know about it, but they don't want you kind of escaping it or spreading that information or whatever. I just feel it could have been blended. The two movies could have been blended and meshed together a little bit better than what it was.
My take is you can't blend them because they're too different. They're scary for two different reasons, and I don't think you can have both of them in the same movie. You can't have an audience that wants both. They're completely different movies for different audiences, and the only reason the haunted pool is there is because that's what's in the contract.
Agree to disagree. I feel like they could, but almost like a murder mystery type of thing, where these killings happening in these different pools, and you're slowly unraveling the mystery, which is the end thing that we get in this movie.
All right, this is definitely a good chat. What are we watching next?
Next week it's The Beekeeper, which is a Jason Statham revenge movie where he's an ex-special forces guy who's retired, and then somebody close to him is the victim of scammers, and so he goes out to kill them to make the world a better place.
Guys, you definitely need to watch that one because I believe that you will have a very interesting take
Yeah.
on this one.
This one could be interesting because like the trailer is giving me a very specific impression, which is basically that it's a
wait.
I mean, if this is just about the trailer, none of us have seen the movie yet.
Okay, fine, cool.
So the trailer pushes this whole idea of the law is broken. If there's a problem, you pick up a gun and you kill the bad people until the world is a better place. And it's not just because it's a revenge movie, there's lots of those, but the trailer makes that message very clearly and just states it outright, which is kind of rubbing me the wrong way. But we'll see if, like we've had a couple of movies now that are nothing like the trailer, and maybe this is just trailer makers deciding this is what will get attention, but that's kind of my first impression based on the trailer. And next week we'll know if that's accurate or not.
Do you know what? I actually enjoy going into movies blind at the moment because we're doing a bunch of movies that weren't completely on my radar, especially some Night Swim. I'm actually enjoying not seeing the trailer and not knowing the discussion around it, because that can very much taint your feelings going into that movie. Because I know it tainted my feelings going into Aquaman when I went to go watch that. All of the discussion about it being bad and some of the stories that were happening around it. So I'm enjoying no trailers. I want to see how long I can keep that up for, but just not doing any trailers and not buying into some of the talk online.
Yeah, there's a pattern. This is now the fourth movie they've discussed. At least two of them have been much more negative than they've have been warranted, and the public has kind of predetermined that these are terrible movies and will fail, and then the actual story is not quite as extreme, at least in two of the cases.
Yeah.
Like Aquaman is on the path to breaking even, and this one is not the worst movie ever made, contrary to what the consensus seems to be.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you everyone for listening in today's episode. We will catch you next week.
Don't forget to like, share, subscribe.
Oh yeah, Harry, that might be your new thing, Cool. Well, yeah, guys, thank you very much, and we'll catch you lot next week. Au revoir.
Bye.